So the second chapter of our syllabus is contracts. Okay. So contracts comes after the letter of intent has been delivered. So upon receiving the letter of intent from the bidder by the lowest bidder, generally the lowest bidder, except those all those 5 cases that we have discussed yesterday, the lowest bidder is conventionally given the contract. That means you are now signing an agreement. Now it is not only you who is signing. Both the parties agree to multiple agreements or conditions given by the other party. For example, say when you are the you are sending the letter of intent to the bidder or to the contractor, you promise him that if you get the work done by the contractor, you will pay him money, and the contractor's condition is if he is paid money and that is assured, he will do the work done. So when these agreements are enforced by law or they are enforced legally, then it is known as a contract. So the Indian Contract Act 1872 defines contract as an agreement enforceable by law. Okay. So there are two things, which is what is meant by an agreement and what is enforceable. We'll come to that in the next slide, but before that, even from before 1872, the term agreements was used, but in a very layman's language, where an agreement entered into by two or more competent party, under the term of which one of the party agrees to perform a given job for which the other party agrees to pay. Now, until this is done, until this particular contract is done, it is something like there are still a lot of liabilities left. For example, see, you go to the grocery store to purchase something and you get it purchased and you come back home, and then you get back the next day and say whatever. You all see a presentation PPT.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Rajdeep, if you can hear me, you just log out once and then log in again. Rajdeep, if you can hear me, please click on raise your hand. Okay, probably it is not visible to him. Can hear me? I will share it once again. Okay, just continue on the line. So it can be multiple stakeholders who are going to sign the contract or who are agreeing to get the job done in lieu of money. But when you have gone to purchase something from a shop, since and you have negotiated over it, and since there is no formal contract, there is 100% chance that the next day the grocer will say, no, you haven't purchased it from my shop, so I will not take it back. Hence, you need some legal enforcement. You need some bill to show, receipts to show that you have paid him in lieu of the product that you have received. So we need this contract, and definitely it is very common that in building construction you will need. Just a second, I will reply to Rajdeep. Okay, let me continue. So coming to the next definition, we'll find out what an agreement is and what is enforceable. These two terms were critical. So for the case of contract, an agreement is defined as every promise or every set of promises forming the consideration for each other. That means either in written or verbally, whatever is being promised in lieu of something, that becomes an agreement. Now it can be legal, it may not be legal, but it's an agreement. That it can be as simple as an agreement ki, I will not, suppose you were sitting in the class after the first half in your studio and one of you go back to the hostel. So the other friend says, okay, you can bring some food from me from the mess. So evening ko मैं तुम्हें Cadbury खिला दूंगा. That can be as simple as an agreement. So it is a promise ki I will give you an Cadbury in the evening, provided, or the consideration is you bring me food for the lunch because I don't have time to have lunch. Okay, so that's a contract. That's an agreement. Now, enforceable means the agreement must create legal obligations between these two parties. Then only it is enforceable legally or enforceable by law. That means the agreement or the promises that you have made, if there is no legal obligations, then it is not a contract. For example, your friend brings in food in the lunch and in the evening there is so much rain that you cannot leave the department. So no question of giving the Cadbury. And at later also the friend cannot ask for the particular things because there was no legal obligations in that kind of enforceability. But now if it is given in written that, or you text him that you send this, I will give you the something else. And then with that WhatsApp message, it is shown that there was a consideration. Now, whether WhatsApp is legal or not in this particular agreement, that is a separate issue. But since there is a proof that there is a consideration of obligation, which in critical cases can be led to the legal issues. For example, sharing of false news regarding corona through WhatsApp has become a legal obligation now. So there is no agreement in that, but it is enforceable by law. So not necessarily all agreements need to be enforceable. There may not be an agreement, but if there is an agreement that give and take policy, which is enforceable by law, then only it becomes a contract. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So contract is an undertaking by a firm of a person to do any work under certain terms and conditions. This is purely architectural contracts definition. So it is undertaking by a firm or an architectural firm comprising of some person. So the person signs the contract on behalf of the firm to do any work under certain terms and conditions. So if the client is hiring an architect or a construction firm, they will get the work done under certain terms and conditions, maybe working condition, maybe payments, maybe some other helps from the authority and all, can be any terms of conditions, but those terms and conditions has to be clearly mentioned. On the basis of those terms and conditions only the contracts can be signed. So you can understand that if there is a fallacy in the terms and conditions, okay, something like we thought that it will be taken care of is not going to account for a proper contract. And always the contractors or the suppliers of goods and services are trying to read the contract multiple times to find out the fallacies of the contracts, the terms, and will put a good birthday cap on top of your head and make fool of you. So to avoid that, you need to be very clear and detailed about the terms and conditions of a contract, which both the party has to agree. Now the terms and conditions are placed in front of both the parties irrespective of who prepares the terms and conditions. It can be the combination of terms and conditions given by both the parties, the client as well as the architect. So when both the parties agrees to the other's terms and conditions and both of them are fulfilled, only then a contract can happen. It cannot be like, since the architect has agreed to the terms and conditions of the client only, hence it is a contract. No, the client also has to agree to the terms and conditions placed by the architect. Okay, hence the second definition was given, that two or more parties each obliging to work or to get something fulfilled in lieu of some other promises given by the other party. Okay. Okay. Now this is a very social term, essentials of a valid contract, because you are not sure that which of the contracts or which of the promises or terms or conditions are essentially required to be considered as valid later. You can come and say, "Ki, sir, for the last few years this was happening, so I thought that that is only going to happen, and hence I blindly signed the contract." No, you have to consider that particular unique agreement as a valid one if this particular essentials are already embedded inside. For example, say an agreement is in order to constitute a valid contract. So there is an agreement which is going to be signed. Now that has to be valid. That can be a valid contract only if it fulfills all these 5 essential requirements. First is parties to the contract should be competent. That means those who are signing the contract, they should be competent enough to sign that contract. For example, say you do not have a Council of Architecture registration. So you are not competent enough to sign a sanctioned drawing. Though you know how to sign the drawing and how to complete the drawing, you are not competent to sign as one of the parties for that particular contract, But there can be different other contract. You can help him in consultancy with some design, and then some other party, you are competent to design, but you are not competent to sign and approve a drawing. So that competency of both the parties has to be there. For example, another example is like you want to purchase a bunch of paper of a particular grade. So you go and sign a contract with a person who sells you bananas. That means the person who sells banana may not be competent party to sign the contract for purchasing a particular type of paper. Okay, I'm giving you examples so that you can recall these unique examples and don't forget this. These examples will help you remember these particular points. So parties has to be competent to sign the contract. Next is the subject matter of the agreement must be legal and definite. So whatever are the terms and conditions of the agreement, all of them are generally in legal languages. I hope you have some idea of what a legal agreement looks like. In your building bylaws, the subject is your building bylaw subject is over in the previous semester. So there you have seen certain building bylaws where the language is a bit different rather than the English language that we speak in, but they are legal language. According to the rule of a particular section or a particular constitution section of that, the two parties hereby agree upon to follow the following terms and conditions until some unwanted matters happen. It is similar to the notes that you write in your working drawing. Those are legal notes, and hence the working drawing, if it is approved, it becomes legally good for construction. So all the agreements must have a legal consideration, because if there is any issue and it is taken to the court, all those agreement terms and conditions should have this power of legal bindings. Otherwise, they will be trivial and the judge will just kick it off that there is no legal consideration. Let's go to the next matter. Okay. So this agreement should have some legal bindings. It can be through language or it can be precise or definite that what are the aspects which are being focused. Don't have to add any other story to that to make it more important or less important. Just mention those legal aspects definitely. That means exactly as much as you require, nothing less, nothing more. Okay. The third one is there must be a proper proposal and the acceptance of that. So as we define in the contract that one or more parties agrees to do a work done or supply a product, and the other party accepts those terms and conditions and agrees to pay against that. So there is a proposal from one or more party that once I get this job done, I will pay. The other party also is giving a proposal that if I am assured of a money of this particular amount, then I will do the work done. So both of them are proposing some conditions and accepting the other's condition. So if both the things are happening, then only it is a valid contract. It cannot be one-sided. It cannot be like, I will give you money, you just do it. It has to be like, he also has to sign the contract. Who will say that, okay, if I get the money, then only I will do it. It has to be both way. So both the party has to accept the proposed proposal given by the other. Then only it is a valid contract. Okay. Just like I am hereby ordering you to supply this particular goods, you write it in a paper and give it to somebody, is not a valid contract. He also has to sign on the paper and say, under the above written terms and conditions, which I will accept, and only as after my acceptance of only these terms and conditions and nothing more or nothing less, I promise to pay these particular goods. Then only that agreement becomes valid. The fourth is, parties to the agreement must give their free consent. So can somebody come up and read this sentence again? Parties to the agreement must give their free consent. So somebody can unmute and say how this point can lead to an invalid contract, or the other side of the coin where parties are not giving a free consent. Any examples where there is a contract going to be signed, and because the parties could not give a free consent, it was an invalid contract? Any example which is coming to your mind? Just to find out whether all of you are awake or not after a lunch. Any example from sky or from hell, anywhere you can give an example where the party is agreeing to write a contract but without a free consent. What can be a situation?
Sir, if somebody is forced to write to the contract, like forced to sign the contract.
Yes, yes, yes. That means it can be either way. Both the parties, it is applicable for both the parties. That means I put a pistol beside somebody's forehead and ask you sign the contract or else I will shoot you. So that is not his free consent. Though it is later used in the court showing that he has signed it, but it was not a free consent. So if that is proved at the court that he had to give the consent forcefully and he was not free to sign the agreement, then again the contract which was signed by a particular person can again be considered as an invalid contract. Okay, there are lots of movies where you see that in the court somebody comes up and says that no, मेरे सर पे बंदूक रख के मेरे से ये sign करवाया गया है. So that now again that contract becomes an invalid contract. These options are open. So when the contracts are being signed, there is a section which writes, I, the undersigned, hereby agrees to pay or agrees to do the work in lieu of money agreed upon by the contractor or agreed upon by the client, and I am giving my consent free of any enforced conditions, or I am giving my free consent in approving the terms and conditions. That is what he has to give in writing. So it is not like niche mein sign kar diya and that is a free consent. Not like that. It is why I am saying so much about this point is I want to make you understand the importance of all the points that is going to come in this contract. The fifth one is there must be a lawful consideration. Okay. There must be a lawful consideration. That means भगवान को साक्षी मान के नहीं होगा. There has to be some legal consideration that if this is done, that is done under some legal aspects, or legally it has to be done, or the contracts are being signed with some legal consideration, means in reference to or with reference to some legal aspects. That means I agree to pay him this money according to the Architects Act which was signed. So according to the Architects Act and the subsection, the client is supposed to pay the architect certain percentage of money. So once that is being agreed, then only architect will sign the agreement or the contract. Similarly, for everything there has to be legal aspect. It cannot be like सफेद पेपर में दोनों ने sign कर दिया हो गया. No, if it is required, it requires to be signed in a affidavit. A contract can be signed in a affidavit, which is a judicial paper. It can be signed on a letterhead, which is considered to be having the name of the company which is lawfully registered, or you put a stamp below. When we sign, we put a stamp, and that makes it a legal consideration. Okay, so all these 4 or 5 things has to be there to be considered for a contract to be considered as a valid contract. Okay, let's go to the next. So this is an old one though. Like contracts or these legal agreements or the agreements which are enforceable by law can broadly be of three types. Okay, three types. Here I have given name of two because the third type I have described later. So the first one is known as a price based contracts. If you want, you can take your handout or running notes, you can take up. So first one is known as a price based contract. The second one is known as a cost based contract. And the third one is known as a BOT, build, operate, transfer contract. Okay. So it is a different special kind of contract which can be different one or can be put into classification of any of these two. So in most of the common books you will find these two categories, but other than these two there is one more type which is a build, operate and transfer contract. Okay. So first let's find out BOT contract we will discuss later, but let's find out what is a price based contract. So price based contract or cost based contract are two different types of contracts. For example, say you want to get a work done. Let's take an example of forget about work done. You are in your fourth year. Okay. Suppose you were in your campus and you have to make a model, design model. So you have to get it done by some students, juniors, or some other professional person who will prepare a model, right? So how there has to be an agreement that this is the scale of model, this is the material. So whether you are going to supply the material or the model maker will use his own material or not, every discussion is given in the terms and conditions, and then both of you are going to sign it. Now, if you agree to pay the money beforehand and utilizing that money the work will get done, then it is known as a price based contract. That means you are paying the price beforehand and utilizing that price the work is getting done. The other type can be, you will say that okay, I need this quality of work with tentatively these materials. So you make it and you bring it back to me and you submit me the bill. Whatever bill you submit, if I see that that is good enough, I will pay you that money back. So that is a reimbursement of a cost. Okay, it is something like you have been to study tours. So in study tour, first you have to pay and then get it reimbursed. So the agreement that you write while approving is initially it will be paid by you because as an advance for smooth processing of the tour, but later as per institute rule, upon submitting bill you will be reimbursed the cost. So the contract that you are signing is a cost reimbursement type. But what I do is, since I am entitled to get an advance, so I claim the advance from the institute and then pay it to the organizer. I have got this much an amount of money and rest as much as you need, I take it, I pay it totally to him, and then he gets the works executed. So in the contract with the office, what I say is, no, I will not reimburse, I will show the adjustment of the bill. So I have paid the money beforehand to the vendor, he has got the work done, and what I have submitted is just the bill to confirm that whatever money I was given, I have utilized all the money officially, or else I have to give back the rest of the money which has not been used. Or I can go for a partial cost reimbursement. Suppose I asked for 15,000 rupees, I am given 10,000 rupees. So 5,000 rupees I have paid from my pocket because it was a price based contract with me and your tour organizer that I have paid, I will pay him, he will utilize that money. So with the office, with the institute, I have a cost based contract, and with the tour organizer, I have a price based contract. Have you got it? With this example, can you remember this example, anyone?
Yes, sir.
Somebody else? Is the example clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'm starting with non-architectural examples, but definitely we will lead to architectural examples only. Okay, so let's find out that what all can be the different kinds of price-based contracts. So only thing common in all those categories will be you have to first pay the price and then get the work done. Okay, so that is a promise being made that I will pay the money first and then it will be utilized. So Rajdeep, is this is slide number 6. If you're not following my screen, then this is slide number 6. Types of contracts में price based contracts. So they are, now this price based contract is what I felt is elaborative enough to teach you. In different books, there are different kinds of price-based contracts. Sometimes they are known as price-based tender because you make a promise in the tender invitation notice itself that which kind of contract you are going to sign. So even the tender becomes a price-based tender or a cost-based tender. So here we are in contract where a legal agreement is being signed. In that agreement, there are a lot of terms and conditions where the payment, because every work is done in lieu of probably payment, some amount of money. So this payment, if it is done beforehand and on the basis of the payment the work is getting executed, then it is a price-based contract. The first type is a lump sum contract. Second one is a lump sum and schedule contract. Third is a schedule contract, or commonly known as a item rate contract. Fourth is a labor contract. Fifth is a target contract. The next is a material supply contract. And seventh is a price work agreement. So what a lump sum, just briefly let me explain what these things are. Lump sum contract is, as the term suggests, you pay the total amount of money initially and be happy that your work will be done. Don't have to keep on pushing him from time to time for the work done. And it is a very common type of contract used in building construction, so I have highlighted it in a different color. The third type is schedule or item rate contract. That means you only know that you are done with the specification only, and you don't know its quantity. So estimation and specification is done. Depending on the costing of that estimation and specification only, you are paying the money for individual item. Okay, and then for individual items, procurement is happening. That is very common, mostly common, because depending on that costing only, small amount of money is paid, and then that part of the work is getting executed or done. So lump sum is you pay the total amount. That means you make a one-story house, so you pay 50 lakhs altogether, or you have done a good costing. So initially you give money for excavation and the excavation is done. Then you give money for foundation construction and foundation is done. Then you give money for brickworks and flooring. So then that is done. Then finishing. So you pay a part according to the item rate contract. So here only the rate is quoted. That means if you are using first class brick and if you are using good quality cement for making M25 or M30 grade concrete, so rate contract, that means rate, that means individual item ka rate kya hai? That means 1 cubic meter, 1 cc of cement cost how much rupees? That rate is only agreed upon. Once you agree to the rate, you have to pay the amount of money beforehand just by multiplying the rate with the quantity that is given in the estimation. But money is paid before the work is done. So it is still a price-based contract. Now there can be a situation, a big task where it is beneficial for partially going for a lump sum contract where the intention, the advantages of the lump sum contract is seen, and for the other place where you see that the item rate contract is advantageous for a part of the work. There you go for a item rate contract. For example, say you started making a house and the house was getting built for some time, and suddenly when 80% of the construction work is done by lump sum contract, you realize that if you pay something more, a little bit of more, you can get an excellent painting finish. A different painting material, a silicone paint material has come in market. So for that, will you again go for a lump sum contract? No, you should go for a price enhanced item rate contract. So instead of a plain silica paint, if you are going for a weatherproof silicone paint, what extra money needs to be paid, given per square feet or per square meter of area? You just do a area calculation of the total, multiply it with the rate given. So the total work is getting executed by a combination of lump sum contract and a schedule contract. Okay. Now, suppose you have a house built, construction is over, debris are all cleared. Now you have to fix up certain cracks and all, or you have to fix up some electrical fixtures and all, and you have already purchased it online. So online tube lights, fan, everything is purchased and they have to be just fixed. So to whom do you need to contact to get this work done? I'm repeating the question. Your house is built, structural painting and everything is over, and you have purchased some electrical fixture, say geyser or a water heater or a tube light or a fan, and you have to get it fixed, and you cannot get it fixed by yourself. So what is the procedure that you have to follow? Don't go by the screen, just tell me informally. What generally do you do?
We'll call some electrician or something.
Plumber.
Someone who
Okay,
does the
okay.
fitting and all.
Okay, so either you can call a plumber, but do you directly go and get to know who a plumber is?
No, sir. We get some suggestions from other.
And if you don't have anybody to suggest, then
Sir, we from the shop from where we bought the materials, we can contact them. They have contacts of plumbers or
so they
electricians.
work as a contractor. Contractor is a person with whom you sign a contract. So you directly talk with the contractor and you tell him that, okay, we are on a verbal contract. It is not a legal contract, it is a verbal contract where if you supply me some labor for this particular kind of work, then I will do a payment for that and you can pay the laborer accordingly.
Yes, sir.
Is it okay? Is it?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree to this?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Because
sir.
in market it might be very difficult to find out a person who can be good enough to install a liquid nitrogen plant. Maybe I give you the example of liquid nitrogen plant quite often because it is very hazardous, it is dangerous, it needs extremely careful quotations and tenders, otherwise it might lead to disaster, as well as it needs essentially equipped or technically sound engineer to install. So suppose you have to install a liquid nitrogen container or a filter in your laboratory. So you don't know who is a supplier of liquid nitrogen. So you cannot go for a limited tender. You have to go for an open tender because you don't know. You have to float in newspaper and similar articles, and then you don't even know the vendor who is going to who can install it. So you have to directly contact the supplier and tell him that we need the contact of some person who can install it. But what are you paying him for? You are paying him for the labor charge, for the man hours that he is giving. I'm sure all of you know what a man hour means after your estimation class. Vivek, do you know?
Sir, how much time the person used to work?
A worker is made to work in
Yes.
lieu of money. Okay. It is a unitary method. We generally take into account of 8 hours of unskilled and semi-skilled laborers and 6 hours of skilled laborers work as man hours for easy calculations. Okay. I would also love to hear sometimes during our discussions from some people who are just mute listeners. Okay. If you want, you can keep unmuted throughout the class also. I don't have any problem until it is some audio disturbances that is getting created. But okay, you are just paying for the man hours or the laborers, not paying for the transportation, not paying for the product that you have to purchase, nothing. You are only paying for the laborers. And it is quite often found that you need to repair a basin fixture or a bathroom fixture, a tap is not working. So you don't pay to purchase a new tap. You first pay the laborer to come and inspect and then try to rectify it. So these kind of contracts are known as labor contract. I gave one example in a class back that you have all the materials after you are constructed with the ground floor. You have a lot of material available for the second floor. So during the next contract, you are only signing a contract for the labor contract where the material will be supplied by you and the contract or the contractor will supply the laborers only. See, since I'm talking about labor contract, let's go to the sixth one first, the material supply contract. So here you are signing a contract that kindly supply this cement, sand and stone chips and reinforcement of this quantity, this specification at a particular venue only. So you are only signing a contract with the material supply agencies and for nothing else. So you are paying the money beforehand and then the product is getting supplied to your site as per this contract. So that is a material supply contract. Here contract for labor or manpower is not coming. And the fifth one is a target contract. Target contract kaise hai? For example, say I am going to make a house. So I'm signing a contract that what I will do is, if I'm intelligent and I'm a good architect, I know that how much time will 10% require to make a 100 square meter house in. So if I know that he will, if it is monsoon or if it is summer or if it is winter, he will take say 3 months time to make a house, or say 4 months time to make a house. So first I will ask him that how much time will you take? He says that he will make the house in 150 days. Okay, which is more than 4 months. Okay, then I analyze that, okay, he is probably fearing the chance of rain and sand and supply of material and everything. So what I say is, okay, I am giving you, I am setting that target. Okay, I am, instead of 150 days, I am giving you 160 days. That is the target, and within that particular date, your target has to be achieved. If you cannot do that, from the 161st date, I will start deducting money. I will pay you even lesser, and you have to pay from your pocket to get the work done. So only thing that was fixed during signing of contract is the target or the deadlines over a particular amount of money. And if it is not followed, violations were also mentioned. So achieving a target, if that is the only consideration for the contract for which you are paying him beforehand. So मैंने पहले पैसा pay कर दिया, थोड़ा दिया या lump sum दिया, doesn't matter, but I have paid you from time to time. So payment of money should not be the cause of delay. From my side, I am clear. Then only thing on which this contract is being signed is the target that has been set. Okay. For example, say we have a chart where we have different phases of work to be done. Say excavation has to be completed within this many days. Let me get off and show you one example. Where can I show you an example from? What is it? Can you see a Excel sheet in my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. See, on the left hand side, we have the tasks, different tasks. And on the right hand side, the blue bar shows which task has to be executed from which day to which day. Okay. We will get into this chart when we start project management after introduction, like the 4th chapter. But right now, just see that we have different tasks, and then the duration of individual tasks are mentioned. So there might be a situation where, so this chart, which is this particular row, it will only start when this particular job is over. So these two are related. So row number 14 and row number 18 or 19 or 20, they are all related. So it can only start when the precedence of row number 14 is done, it is completed. I'm sharing the PPT again. So there we should give a target to the person having the first job, that if you cannot complete it by that point of time, that means it is going to delay the subsequent jobs. So sometimes fixing a target is essential. So a contract only on the basis of fixing target is a target contract. And the last one is price
Sir.
work agreement. Yes, please.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, what happens if a situation comes like Corona or something? Because it is neither the issue of the contractor or the person who is giving the contract. So,
Okay.
should we rewrite the agreements again, or is there something?
No, nothing like that. Nothing like that. If there is a situation like a pandemic, or say a cold war has started, or torrential flooding and rain has started, so the work is getting delayed. Now there can be two options. Either if you are a good manager, you will have extra time added within the time. But say Corona, nobody knows when it is going to end, or say flood or cloudburst, nobody knows when it is going to end. So that means the contract is going to be breached now. You cannot complete it in the targeted deadline. So what happens is, first of all, the contractor is held for a breach of contract. So contractor is said a contract was signed that under all circumstances you are supposed to complete this. And remember, in the contract it is also made clear that the contractor has to take some sort of degree of risk. Hence, he has given a quotation, including all those risks. But now the situation that Shamim you are asking is beyond that estimated risk. So what happens is, citing these reasons, we can ask for an extension of time. I have given you a handout today, which we will discuss in, say, if not this week, maybe next week in our project management class only, that under what circumstances these contracts are considered void, and under what circumstances a breach of contract can be considered as a null and it is an extension. That means the contractor says ki you have no other option, zero option to get it done. So kindly do not consider it as a breach of contract, but allow an extension of time. Okay, this initially it looks like simple because probably till now none of you have written a contract, but the contract is so exhaustive that it is very difficult to find a loophole out of it. The terms and conditions of the contracts are so critical. For example, say I have told you that when we are purchasing some equipment for NIT Rourkela, I have shown you the tender invitation notice. So after the first 3 pages, there was a bid document, which was the terms and conditions. On the fulfillment of those terms and conditions only, the risk that is taken into the decision making factor as a decision making factor. After that only the contractor is giving a quotation. So he has taken some sort of risk. That means he is supplying an electrical equipment in such a good packing and transportation that rain doesn't causes any problem to that, extreme heat doesn't causes any problem to that, due to mishandling there is no problem. Those risks are taken into account, but there may be some other risks also which cannot be foreseen earlier. So if those are accommodated, these terms and in the terms and conditions initially, then you can easily get rid of that at a later stage. We will discuss it in detail. We have to discuss this breach of contract. Today I have sent you 2 handouts. One of it has this breach of contract and extension of time. Okay, don't worry, I will discuss. Okay, Shamim?
Okay, sir.
Okay. The last one is a price work agreement. It is something like you fix a price and ask that at that particular price get the work done. It is just a work and it can be any work. So you say that I have 25,000 rupees of a budget. So at 25,000 rupees, I cannot afford the overall agreed aluminum window frame and doubly coated glass, but give me a plastic frame and a waste wood or engineer wood window panel. So the work is fixed at a particular price. So if only those agreement is done where there is a small work and the price for that particular work is fixed, it is a price work agreement. Okay. So what are the different types of cost-based contract? So cost-based contract, to make it clearly distinguished from price-based contract, what I am coining that I am using the term of cost reimbursement contract. So it would be easier for you to understand that cost reimbursement contracts are after the work is done, or you promise to pay him after the work is done. But this promise is made beforehand when the contract is signed, that at what amount of money you are going to pay, or in which format you are going to pay him after the work is done. That promise has to be made during the signing of contract only. So the types of cost reimbursement contracts are, first is the cost plus fixed fee. So the example is, suppose you want to get a material, say 1 ton of sand supplied from a riverbed to your destination. So you are signing a contract where you promise to pay the transporter who is going to lift that sand from the riverbed and then supply it to your place. So you say that for supplying you are going to pay 400 rupees or say 600 rupees for the trip from wherever you get, and you will pay the cost means the costing wala cost, so unit cost. So how much ton of sand you bring, you will just multiply it with the cost and pay that amount of money only. So the fees for delivery or transportation is fixed, and the cost or the unit cost of that material that is being supplied can be fixed later, but that cost, once it is agreed, has to be paid once you get it supplied. So the promise is being made right now that for partial factor the costing wala cost aa jayega, which is generally the unit cost, and Along with that, there is a fixed fee which you are going to pay. This generally happens for small works. Okay, where, for example, say you are an architect, you have promised to get a small cafeteria built. So what you say is the total project cost for building this cafeteria is say 75,000 rupees or say 80,000 rupees. A small cafeteria, say पेड़ के नीचे Nescafe है. So you are going to make few walls, plinth and a roof covering with some shelves with electrical connection. So 80,000 rupees is the total cost of the project. Now if you claim say 2% or 3% of 80,000 as a architectural consultancy fee, say 5% you have taken. So what is 5,000 of 5% of 80,000? Only 4,000 rupees. So will you agree to work on an architectural project for 4,000 rupees? Shamim?
No,
छोटा
sir.
प्रोजेक्ट
No,
होगा
sir.
बहुत तो कर लेंगे.
छोटा प्रोजेक्ट होगा तो कर लेंगे. ओके.
पार्किंग वर्किंग बनाने का कुछ ऐसा छोटा मोटा होगा तो कर
हाँ.
सकते हैं.
So
But it
parking जो
depends
बनाना
on
होगा,
the
if there,
size.
I am telling about the size only. So the costing is fixed because per square feet construction cost is 100 rupees or 150 rupees. Right. So
Yes.
total built up करके you are seeing कि तुम्हारे 80,000 rupees में a parking has been built with doors and walls और a small cafeteria has been built और 1 लाख रुपए में एक सिक्योरिटी का छोटा सा जो पोस्ट होता है हॉस्टल के सामने that is built. So you are asking for the consultancy fee now because you have not earned anything from the material cost. Material तो procure किया and labor charge भी दे दिए. And labor charge and material cost has been cost reimbursement की you have paid the contractor exactly how much जिनका bill contractor ने तुम्हें दिया है. But what is your fees? So in these particular cases, if you are asking for a percentage, say 2%, 2.5% or 5%, that is very trivial. 4,000 रुपया, 5,000 रुपया. 4,000 और 5,000 रुपया में अगर काम करोगे तो तुम्हें आर्किटेक्ट बनने नहीं देगा because you are destroying the professional practice fraternities like ideologies. ये ना मतलब सस्ते में
तो
काम
वो-
करके दे दिए. So what
but
you
वो
say
percentage
is
भी fixed.
percentage has to be fixed if it is a percentage fixed. So percentage fixed because उससे ज़्यादा तो मांग नहीं सकते because if you are making a 200 square meter house then 5% is okay. 5 हेक्टेयर के 2.5 हेक्टेयर जमीन में अगर तुम एक मकान बना रहे हो तो 5% of the total project cost is good enough. That will fetch you 5 lakh rupees. तब ठीक है. But when you are making a small thing, that percentage is not working. So you should go for a fixed fee. कि whatever I do, I will give you the complete design and you have to pay me 20,000 rupees. Because you will invest 10 days time behind that. You have to pay 5,000 rupees for that person, 5,000 rupees for your deliverables, printouts, instruction in a written format, site visit and all. And 10,000 rupees is your overhead, establishment cost, profit and all. Okay. So 20,000 rupees is good enough. So what you are fixing is material cost is fixed, labor cost is fixed, the cost is fixed. Cost means unit cost, unit price. But your fees is also fixed now. Whatever you make him do, 80,000 ho ki 1 lakh ka kaam ho, you are being paid 20,000 rupees. So the component which you will be paid after you get the work done is fixed. But we have fixed on a percentage for a bigger project, so that becomes as cost plus percentage contract. So you say that you submit, you give me the work, you get the work done. So whatever bill you submit, I will pay that and also pay certain percentage of the bill additional to take care of the service that you are providing me. ऐसा होता है? अभी example दिया just now that you are getting a house built where you are making a house in say 200 square meter of plot. So the total project cost reaches about say 80 lakh rupees. Again, I am saying 80 lakh arbitrarily. I am saying don't use this amount in your estimations and all. So 80 lakh rupees का घर बनाया, 5% of 80 lakh is good enough now. 40,000 rupees मिलेगा, है ना? मिलेगा?
Yes, sir.
80 lakh का 4% कितना होता है? 5% कितना होता है?
4 lakh.
4
4
लाख
lakh.
होगा ना.
4 lakh.
4 लाख होगा, 40,000 कैसे होगा? 4 lakh. Now 4 lakh is good enough for an establishment of a office and all. So here percentage for your fees, percentage is okay. Whatever is the bill that is being generated, because project is working, every time you are getting a copy of the bill that the contractor is supplying the client with. So whatever is the total project cost, you are paying the contractor that amount of money, and for your service, you are getting a percentage of the total project cost.
Okay.
Okay. Your building bylaws class was not completed in last semester, I guess. So your code of practice, have you started code of practice? Was it started? The subject is
No,
building
sir.
bylaws and code of practice. So was it started?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. I will try to give a hint of those, because otherwise you have to complete your office next semester and then come back and then continue with this particular subject of professional practice, where you might get lost कि कुछ भी मालूम नहीं था, ऑफिस करके आ गया. So ऑफिस जाने से पहले थोड़ा थोड़ा चीजें बता के रखना जरूरी है, which I will let you know, but I will not get into the detail today. But let me just finish these 2 points, which is cost plus fluctuating fee. That means you are doing a project where the cost or the estimation and costing is fixed. So amount of money you are going to pay, the unit price is fixed. But what is happening is the construction is happening for 4 or 5 or 6 years. So the Golden Jubilee building in our NIT Rourkela, it is being built for say almost 5 years now. So लेकिन ये 5 साल में बटाटा और क्या कहते हैं उसको, कांदा, मतलब पोटैटो एंड ऑनियन, द प्राइस हैज बीन चेंजिंग. योर ऑफिस में फीस दैट इज बीइंग पेड, वो भी चेंज हो रहा है. So if in the contract itself there is a provision that for the first 1 year this much percentage, for the next year another percentage, the third year another percentage, so the percentage might change, or the amount of fixed fee that is going to change irrespective of the cost. It is fine that you have done with the costing, but over the time, if the unit cost change, the actual cost is going to also change. So the reimbursed cost is going to change because you have to pay the bill which is being submitted by the contractor. So cost section, the left hand side section is different and right hand side section is different. But every time you are paying you after the work is done, but you are promising to pay before the work is done. That means the contract is signed before. And the fourth one is the most common, which is a percentage rate contract. For everything, you are just quoting a percentage. So cost ke liye bhi you are not giving anything. Cost will also be a percentage, as well as your service charge is also going to be a percentage. So it is something like you are having a contract where whatever कुछ भी सामान देगा, a percentage of that is your consultancy fee, or a percentage of that is your transportation fee. If you, irrespective of the cost of the material you are transporting. For example, say you are given a contract to supply sand from Vedavyas to NIT Rourkela, and you are given a contract to supply a bed, a wooden bed from Vedavyas to Rourkela. So the cost of sand and cost of bed is different. So if there is a cost plus percentage or cost plus fluctuating fee, then the fees will be different irrespective, because the cost is different. But if you just fix the percentage, since the two products are different, the percentage will also change. So bed lana asan hai, to bring the sand, percentage should be different, because digging up sand, loading it and unloading it takes more time. So you are only fixing a percentage, that what percentage of the total cost you are going to get. Architects do only that. So whatever is the total project cost, I just need a percentage of the work. क्योंकि कभी कभी क्लाइंट क्या करते हैं, बहुत महंगा चीज यूज कर लेते हैं without the consent of the architect. So in that particular stage क्या होता है कि आर्किटेक्ट ने से मोटा मोटा काम करवा लिया, कम पैसे का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हो गया, उसके बाद क्लाइंट इज पेइंग extra money to get a golden building constructed. So at that point of time, if you have this percentage rate contract already assigned beforehand, your consultancy fees will increase. You will get more money. Okay. So with this, I end up here today's class. But just to remind you that you all are having a subject which is seminar technical writing and academic portfolio. Please be aware that you have to start applying for different offices. But first you need to confirm what is going to be your tenure, from which month to which month, whether it is December to May or January to June. So confirm it with Somi ma'am or HOD ma'am, and then you have to start preparing your portfolio for applying in different offices. If it is planned beforehand within the pandemic, a different situation. If you wait till the pandemic ends, you might be in a critical condition also. So you are free to judge, because you cannot wait for your seniors to complete and come back, because once their offices, their tenure is over, your tenure will come. You will not get the 8th semester to decide. Okay. So thank you so much. I will stop the recording for today, and I will take uh,